minutes and under coding. So today we'll do a pretty simple project which will give us a better understanding of nested if statements and else statements, and we'll do that through a function. So basically the goal for today is to find the maximum of 3 inputted values. So if I were to say 1, 2, and 3, the maximum of those 3 values would definitely be 3. So let's first look at how this code comes out to look like. So over here I'm just going to take the function and I'm going to print the result of the maximum of 3 values: 123, 12,938, and 12,338. So let's see what that comes out to be. And it gives me the value 12,938, which is the largest one out of all of them. So let's look at the logic of this function. So first, in my first line, I'm going to be defining my function in conventional Python notation, and I'll call my function max of 3, and this function will take in 3 different values: A, B, and C. So first things first, I'm going to set my variable, which is going to be maximum of 3 or max of 3, and that variable is basically going to be the variable that will return, and it will be the biggest value out of those 3 numbers. So throughout this function we'll be figuring out what is max of 3 equal to, but for now we'll set it to 0 because we are not quite sure, at least the program isn't quite sure, what max of 3 is yet. So this is where our logic begins. So first we're going to compare A and B. So if A is greater than B, then we'll set the max of 3 to A because that's the biggest number we know so far, because we know it's greater than B. And if A is less than C, so we're going to compare it to C now because we know that it's definitely greater than B, and it only has to be compared to C to see whether it's the maximum of the 3 values. So if A is less than C, then we'll set the max of 3 to C because we know that C is greater than A, and since A is greater than B, then C is also greater than B. However, if this isn't true, if A is actually greater than C, we'll set the maximum of the 3 values to A. But let's say that A isn't greater than B. Let's say that B is greater than A. Then this entire if statement doesn't work logically. So we'll have to try another way to figure out which one is the maximum of 3 values. So we'll use an else statement. So if what our logic in line 3 says isn't true, then we'll go to line 9 and we'll do else if B is greater than C. So since we know that A isn't greater than B, we only have to compare B and C. So in this else statement is basically saying that A is not greater than B. So we have to take A out of the picture, and now we only have to compare B and C. So if B is greater than C, then the maximum of the 3 values is equal to B. Else, if B is not greater than C, if C is greater than B, then the maximum of the 3 values is going to be C. And then we'll return the maximum of the 3 values, which will either be A, B, or C, based on what our computer program finds. And then what we'll do is that we'll print this function, and then we'll give it 3 inputs. And let me just change this to something else. Some random numbers. And I'll make them all relatively close to each other so it's not super obvious. Okay. Let's see. So we have our 3 inputs and we're going to figure out which one's the maximum. Okay, so the maximum that we got was 2,378,454. So as you can see, this was a logic that we used. We used a function and we used if and else statements to figure out what the maximum of the 3 values was, and we set that to 0 to begin with, and then we finally returned the maximum of the 3 values when we went through all of our logic and we got a better understanding of which one is the greatest. Now, while this may seem like an easy task for a human to complete, it's important that we get a better grasp of the logic that computers use to tackle these problems, because they don't have it ingrained in them through years of school or just, like the equations that have been drilled into us ever since we were young. They have to do it from scratch, and this is how they do it, which is kind of how we do it, but we have to make it explicit for the computers. So I hope you like this video, and be sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you.